in the heart of a quiet Balinese village named Penglipuran, where the morning mist caresses the red rooftops and the smell of frangipani hangs in the air, a young woman named Ayu prepared for the morning offering. Her movements were precise, elegant, shaped by years of tradition and the silent teachings of her late grandmother. The village was old, older than stories could trace. Time seemed to slow down here, moving only when the wind allowed. People whispered that the banyan tree near the temple was as ancient as the gods themselves. Its wide roots clawed into the earth like veins searching for memory. That morning, as Ayu placed the kenong sari at the base of the banyan, she heard something. Not a voice exactly, but something more subtle. A breath. A murmur. It drifted like smoke just beyond comprehension. She froze. The birds had stopped singing. Ayu looked around. No one. Then she noticed it. The offering she had placed had shifted. The incense had extinguished without a breeze. A single yellow petal lay outside the tray. A feeling, cold and immediate, rushed through her spine. Later that day, Ayu mentioned it to Pak Ged, the village priest. He was an old man with eyes that had seen too much and lips that seldom spoke of what they saw. "You must not speak of what listens," he said softly. "Not by that tree." That night, Ayu couldn't sleep. She heard the banyan again. Not in her ears, but in her chest. A slow, pulsing echo. As if something was calling her. Something ancient. The next morning, Ayu found a folded piece of cloth on her doorstep. It was old, hand-woven in a pattern she had only seen once, on her grandmother's sarong, the day she was buried. And tied within it was a stone. Not an ordinary stone. It pulsed with warmth. Ayu's heart whispered a warning. But her feet? They turned toward the temple path. And the banyan was waiting. The temple path twisted through the jungle like a serpent cloaked in vines. Ayu walked slowly, each step a hesitant echo on the mossy stones. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and something older, something sweet and rotting at the same time. She held the woven cloth tightly, the stone inside radiating a low warmth that pulsed like a heartbeat. With each beat, her mind grew hazier. Not confused, but lulled, as though the forest whispered lullabies only her blood could understand. As she neared the temple, something caught her eye. A figure, just ahead, not moving. It was a man, dressed in the white ceremonial cloth of a pamenku, but weathered, yellowed by time. He stood still as a statue, facing the temple gate. "Hello," Ayu called, but her voice felt small, swallowed by the trees. The man turned. His face was familiar. Unmistakably so. It was her grandfather. But her grandfather had died 10 years ago. His eyes met hers, not cold, not kind, just empty. Then, without a word, he stepped backward through the gate and vanished into the shadows of the inner temple. Ayu ran forward, heart pounding, but the temple gate was sealed. Bound not by lock or wood, but by something invisible, like the pressure of a dream. She placed her hand on the stone and felt the cloth in her hand grow warmer. Then she heard the bells. Not the temple bells. The bells of Naben. A funeral. The sound echoed from the village behind her, but when she turned, there was no smoke, no fire, no people. Only the banyan tree. And beneath it, something new. A figure kneeling in silence. Covered in ash. Weeping. Ayu stepped back. Her breath caught. It was herself. Ayu stared at the figure kneeling beneath the banyan tree, her own face buried in ash-covered hands. The image was impossible, yet it breathed. She could hear the soft, broken sobs. See the tremble of shoulders. Her twin, her shadow, grieving for something unnamed. She dared a step closer. The air grew heavier, pressing against her skin like water. The weeping stopped. The figure slowly raised its head. Their eyes met. And Ayu felt herself slip. The ground tilted. Not physically, but in her mind. Memories she didn't remember began to pour in. A child's laugh. A storm. A pair of hands letting go from a cliff's edge. A scream swallowed by crashing waves. None of it hers, yet it lived in her bones. The figure beneath the tree opened its mouth to speak. But the voice came from behind her. You've seen it, haven't you? Au spun around. A woman stood there, tall, draped in black lace, with silver threads braided into her hair. Her eyes shimmered like still water. She carried no presence, yet the jungle bent around her. Who are you? Au whispered. A keeper. Of what was forgotten. The woman smiled, though there was no warmth in it. You carry more than blood, Au. You carry what was buried. Au wanted to run, but her feet remained rooted. The woman stepped closer and reached for the cloth in Au's hand. She didn't touch it, only hovered above it, and the stone inside pulsed once, violently. You opened the door, the woman said. Now it remembers you. Remembers what? But the woman was gone. Only the rustling of the banyan leaves remained, as if they were clapping in slow, deliberate rhythm. The figure beneath the tree had vanished, and in its place sat a mirror. Au approached. The frame was carved from old wood, etched with symbols she couldn't read. When she looked in, she did not see herself. She saw the temple, empty, dark, and at its center, an altar. Something lay upon it, wrapped in the same cloth she held, and the stone was glowing like fire. The vision in the mirror blurred, dissolving into mist as Au's breath fogged the surface. She blinked, and the image was gone. Only her reflection stared back, eyes wide, lips pale, the cloth still clutched tight in her hand. Behind her, the jungle stirred. Au turned sharply. No one. Yet something had changed. The trees now leaned inward, as though listening. The path behind her had disappeared, swallowed by foliage too thick to have grown in mere minutes. The only way was forward. She crossed the temple threshold. It was darker than she remembered. The air inside pressed against her chest, thick with the smell of burned incense and age. The inner chamber pulsed faintly, as if the walls themselves breathed. And at the center, just as the mirror had shown, was the altar. Upon it lay the cloth, an exact twin of what she held, and the stone within glowed like a buried ember. She stepped closer. A whisper brushed her ear. You should not be here. A figure emerged from the shadowed corner. It was the same woman in black lace, though her face now seemed younger. Or perhaps just clearer. Less dreamlike. You crossed the veil, Au, she said. Not all return. What is this place? It is memory, the woman said, circling the altar. Yours. Your grandmother's. The village's. Every soul that left something unfinished beneath this tree. Au reached out to touch the glowing stone. It seared her palm. The vision came instantly. Flames. Screaming. The temple engulfed in fire. Villagers running. Shadows fleeing. And her grandmother, standing in the center, chanting as the roof collapsed. Au collapsed to her knees, gasping. When she looked up again, the altar was gone. And so was the woman. Only the whisper remained. Au staggered to her feet, her skin cold despite the humid air. The cloth had vanished, but the burn on her palm remained, a faint red symbol, like an ancient letter. She stepped outside the temple. And it was night. She hadn't been inside long. Or had she? The village lights shimmered in the distance, faint and flickering like dying stars. But the sounds were wrong. No dogs barking. No laughter. Just silence and a song. A single voice, delicate and broken, singing an old Balinese lullaby. One her grandmother used to hum during storms. Drawn by the melody, Au followed the sound. It led her not to the village, but to the rice fields. Silver under moonlight, the paddies stretched endlessly. And in the center of the water stood a girl, barefoot, drenched, staring directly at her. Au called out. The girl said nothing, but the song grew louder. It wasn't coming from the girl's mouth. It was coming from beneath the water. Ripples spread. Something moved below the surface, circling the girl's feet. The water grew darker. The girl lifted a hand. She pointed, not at Au, at the sky. Au looked up and saw the banyan tree, floating above them, its roots twisting like smoke, its leaves glowing silver under a moon that should not have been there. Then everything went dark. She awoke in a house she didn't recognize. The walls were made of woven bamboo, the air filled with the smell of clove and turmeric. A wooden mask hung above the doorway, smiling, but not kindly. A man sat near her, old, with skin like bark and eyes like charcoal. "You wandered too far," he said, handing her a cup of warm tea. "Where am I?" "The space between stories," he replied. Au sat up. "I sawed a girl." He nodded. "They all see her. She sings to the ones the tree remembers." "What does the tree want?" The man didn't answer immediately. He reached for a long knife and a block of wood. With delicate hands, he began to carve. "Every soul holds a story," he said, shaving thin curls of wood. "But some stories are buried, forgotten. The banyan is not just a tree, child. It is a keeper." He held up the carving. It was Au's face. Startled, she stepped back. "It wants you to remember," he said softly. "Or it will keep calling." Au left without another word. Outside, the jungle was waiting. But now the path had changed. And the singing had begun again. The trail led her to a shrine she'd never seen before, stone cracked with age, moss devouring every edge. Offerings lay untouched, long rotted. A single red thread trailed from the entrance. She followed it. Inside, the air turned still. Cold. Sacred. The walls were covered in cloth, old ceremonial garments, faded sarongs, veils embroidered with names in ancient script. One name pulsed brighter than the others. And I Lu Sari, her grandmother. The thread wound around Au's wrist, warm like breath. She followed it deeper. There, resting on a pedestal, was a book, bound in bark, locked with a clasp of bone. As she reached for it, a voice rang out behind her. "Do not read what was sealed." The woman in black lace again. But this time, her voice trembled. "She wanted you to be free," the woman said. "But now you've been chosen." The thread around Au's wrist tightened. The book unlocked itself. She opened the book. No words. Only images. A village burned in secret. A priest accused of heresy. A child hidden beneath temple stones. Blood spilled during a lunar eclipse. And at the heart of every memory, the banyan tree. It stood through every century, watching, absorbing, remembering. Not just events, but emotions, regrets, hatreds. Love turned bitter. Promises broken. Au's hands trembled. One final page revealed itself. A face. Her own. Beneath it, a single line carved in the bark. "You are her echo." Au dropped the book. The tree outside shuddered, its roots tearing through the soil. The jungle screamed, and Au ran. His sky had turned violet. The village was no longer her village. Its buildings were empty shells, flickering like mirages. Spirits walked between them, shadows in human form, repeating gestures from lives long ended. Au rushed to the banyan. It was bleeding. Sap like black ink poured from its trunk, and within its bark faces began to appear. Crying, laughing, screaming. She reached for the stone in her pocket. It had returned, warm and pulsing. Then came the voice, not outside her, but within. Finish what she began. Her grandmother's voice. And suddenly Au remembered. The chants, the fire, the sacrifice meant to cleanse the tree, to end its burden of memory. But it had failed, because Au had been hidden. Now the tree demanded the completion of the ritual. Au stepped forward. The stone glowed white. The roots opened, forming a circle around her like an ancient altar. Wind howled. The spirits gathered. The jungle bent inward. Au knelt. She raised the stone high and began to chant, not from memory but from blood. The words came through her, not hers, but hers to speak. Light spilled from her palm. The roots writhed. The faces screamed. But she did not stop. She placed the stone into the heart of the tree. It sank. The ground shook. The banyan let out a sound not meant for mortal ears. Part breath, part scream, part release. Then silence. When Au opened her eyes, the tree was still. its roots curled peacefully. The air was clear, the jungle quiet. She stood, barefoot in the dirt, the burn on her palm now gone. In its place, a smooth scar in the shape of a single leaf. The stone was no more. The cloth had vanished, and the memory was finished. But as Au walked away, deep in the trunk of the banyan, something pulsed softly, as though the tree had simply paused, waiting.